The sterile glow of Epsilon Station's Grand Customs Hall stretched endlessly under cold blue-white lights that hummed with the faint vibration of orbital stabilizers. Rows of scanning booths lined the central plaza, each manned by Concordance officers from various species, their uniforms crisp and insignia gleaming. The air was thick with the mingled scents of a dozen alien physiologies, ozone from energy shields, bitter pheromones of stress, and the metallic tang of recycled atmosphere. Hundreds of travelers shuffled forward in snaking lines, merchants clutching cargo manifests, diplomats with entourages, weary miners returning from deep space rigs, and a scattering of tourists gawking at the massive viewport showing the swirling nebula beyond. Tension simmered beneath the surface. Post-war protocols were strict. Every ID scan carried the weight of suspicion, especially for humans. The Concordance had never fully forgotten the incursion. The brutal conflict where Terra's ragtag forces had punched far above their weight class. Whispers still circulated in officer briefings about unbreakable human resolve, suicidal charges, and commanders who refused to yield even when logic dictated surrender. Marcus Kane stood near the front of the human-designated lane, duffel bag slung casually over one shoulder, hands in the pockets of his worn leather jacket. He looked every bit the unassuming traveler. Average height, steady gray eyes, a faint scar tracing his jawline, and the quiet confidence of someone who had walked through hell multiple times and come out smirking. His wrist implant itched faintly under the station's security fields, but he ignored it. Another checkpoint. Another day. Ahead of him, the line moved with glacial slowness. A nervous Zenthari merchant was arguing over cargo tariffs, feathers ruffled in frustration. Behind Marcus, a pair of young human engineers whispered excitedly about their first off-world contract. The atmosphere grew heavier as more eyes drifted toward the solitary human. Humans were rare here, tolerated, but watched. Lieutenant Vera occupied the booth directly in front of him. She was a Silphari, elegant and imposing, with iridescent skin that shifted through cool blues and silvers under the lights. Her multi-jointed fingers danced across holographic controls with practiced precision, her compound eyes focused and professional. She had processed hundreds today. Boring. Routine. Next, she called, voice smooth through the translator. Marcus stepped forward and pressed his wrist against the scanner pad. A soft chime echoed. Data streamed across Vera's screen in glowing runes. For a moment, everything was normal. Then her posture stiffened. Her fingers froze mid-gesture. The iridescent hues of her skin drained rapidly to a sickly pale gray. Her compound eyes dilated wide, pupils contracting to razor slits as she leaned closer to the display. Marcus Kane. Terra Sol, Sol System. Military Service, Captain, 7th Terran Expeditionary. Honorably discharged. Classified Annex, Omega Black Clearance. Notable engagements, Valthor Ridge, decisive turning point, 3,200 enemy casualties attributed directly or indirectly. Black Veil Ambush, sole survivor, extraction of 14 high-value assets under total enemy encirclement. Crixon Breach, led counterassault that broke the siege lines. Threat Assessment, Extreme. Psychological Profile, Unyielding. Combat Doctrine, Human Pattern, Never Just Survive. Warning, approach with maximum caution. Recommend immediate senior officer notification. Archived holos flickered across the screen in rapid succession. Grainy battlefield footage of a bloodied human in shredded armor dragging wounded allies through plasma-laced ruins, roaring orders that somehow rallied broken lines. Another clip showed him standing alone atop a shattered ridge as enemy dropships burned around him. The name had become legend in military academies across the Concordance, a ghost story told to scare young officers. The Butcher of Valthor. The man who laughed in the face of annihilation. Vera's breath hitched audibly. Her delicate mandibles quivered. The emotional shock hit her like a gravity spike, waves of primal fear, professional dread, and reluctant awe crashing together. Her legs, usually steady and graceful, suddenly felt like liquid. She tried to stand, to regain composure, but the world tilted violently. With a sharp, undignified cry, Lieutenant Vera toppled sideways out of her chair. The ergonomic seat rolled away as she crashed to the polished deck plating in a tangle of limbs and shimmering uniform fabric. Her scanner clattered beside her, the holographic display still glowing with Marcus's infamous record. The entire hall seemed to freeze. Gasps and startled clicks erupted from every direction. 2 armed Krix guards rushed forward, energy batons half-drawn, their tentacles coiling in alarm. Travelers in nearby lines pressed back, creating a ripple of panic. Whispers exploded. What happened? Did the human attack her? She just fell. Marcus blinked once, then let out a slow, weary sigh. He leaned forward slightly on the counter, peering down at the fallen officer with a mix of concern and that trademark dry amusement. Easy, Lieutenant. Breathe. It's just an ID card. Vera pushed herself up on shaky arms, assisted by one of the guards. Her skin flickered erratically between fear colors and professional silver. She stared up at Marcus as if he might dissolve into a nightmare at any second. You are him," she whispered hoarsely, translator glitching slightly under the stress. "Captain Kane. The ghost. The one who..." She couldn't finish. The emotional intensity was overwhelming. For Sylphari, whose species relied heavily on emotional pheromones and visual cues, the legend surrounding this human carried the weight of a natural disaster. Stories from the war painted him not as a soldier, but as something almost supernatural, an unstoppable force driven by that strange, terrifying human quality they called sheer bloody-minded defiance. The guards hesitated, eyes darting between Vera and Marcus. One of them scanned the human again covertly, confirming the data. Their tentacles tightened in visible unease. Across the hall, more officers were converging, drawn by the commotion. A senior Thalic commander pushed through the crowd, armor plates clicking with each heavy step. Marcus rubbed the scar on his jaw, his voice low but carrying clearly in the sudden hush. "Look, I'm not here to cause trouble. Just passing through for resupply before heading Core Ward. Got a shipment of coffee and spare parts waiting. No ambushes, no ridges, no last stands today. Promise." But his casual tone only deepened the suspense hanging over the checkpoint. The air crackled with it. Travelers watched in rapt silence, some recording discreetly. The young human engineers behind him looked torn between pride and second-hand embarrassment. Vera finally regained her feet, though she kept a respectful distance. Her voice trembled with a potent mix of fear and fascination. "The reports from Valthor, they said you held the line for 46 hours with less than a platoon against 3 divisions. You refused evacuation. They say you charged a plasma cannon emplacement with nothing but a broken rifle and a smile." Marcus's gray eyes hardened slightly, the weight of memory flashing across his face, intense, raw, and deeply personal. The hall leaned in unconsciously. Wasn't smiling. Was grimacing. Hurt like hell. But yeah, we held. Because turning tail wasn't an option. Not for us. Not for the people counting on us back home. The emotional depth in his words hit the gathered aliens hard. Sylphari like Vera were especially sensitive. She visibly shuddered as residual war pheromones, faint but potent from archived trauma, seemed to emanate from the human. Respect warred with instinctual dread. Here was no hulking monster or advanced war machine. Just a man. Yet that man had broken entire battle doctrines. The Thalic commander arrived, saluting stiffly. "Captain Kane. Station Commander Thalcor. Your presence is unexpected. We offer full diplomatic courtesies." Marcus nodded politely, that faint smirk returning as the tension slowly eased. "Appreciate it. And maybe tell your officers that not every human scan ends in fainting. Bad for morale. A nervous ripple of alien laughter, clicks, trills, and rumbling chuckles, spread through the hall. Vera managed a shaky smile, her skin slowly regaining its natural shimmer. Forgive me, Captain. The name, it carries history. We teach the Valthor campaign as a cautionary tale. How a single species can defy every probability. Marcus picked up his duffel as the barriers dissolved instantly. Histories written by survivors. We just refuse to lose. Earth's full of people like that. Stubborn. Loyal. A little crazy. That's our secret weapon. As he walked through the checkpoint, the crowd parted with a mixture of awe and newfound respect. Whispers followed him like shadows, legends being retold in real time. Lieutenant Vera watched him go, still steadying herself on the counter. For the first time in her career, a simple ID scan had shaken her to the core, and reminded her why the Concordance now sought alliances rather than conquest with Terra. In the vast, unforgiving galaxy, some names carried more power than fleets. Marcus Keynes was one of them. And as he disappeared into the bustling station corridors, the aliens left behind felt the subtle shift, fear giving way to something deeper. Curiosity. Admiration. And the quiet understanding that humanity's greatest strength wasn't technology or numbers. It was the unyielding will to stand up, smirk in the face of oblivion, and keep moving forward, no matter how many times the universe tried to knock them down. The station felt a little smaller that cycle. A little more alive with possibility. And somewhere in the officers' lounge later that evening, Lieutenant Vera would raise a glass to the human who had quite literally knocked her off her feet.